Good morning. It's 9 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the September 6th, 2022 City Council meeting. Please call the roll.
Garza,
Here.
Fast,
Here.
Bagwell,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our prayer this morning will be given by Pastor Ken Beery. Thank you.
Let us pray. God of creation, through the splendor of the sunrise, we know that today is filled with opportunities. We can choose to bring light to the corners of our world to make them better places. Thank you for our leaders today who will navigate details of guiding our community through wise decisions. Help us work together, giving us ears to hear and eyes to see how you are working among us. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, next item, please.
Item 4A, a proclamation for Minority Enterprise Week.
Okay, and I'd like to invite to the podium Dave Sotelo. Whereas minority businesses in particular are the heart and soul of so many communities across our nation. From Wall Street to Main Street, over 9.2 million minority business enterprises, MBEs, support jobs and generate more than 1.8 trillion for our economy every year. And whereas during Minority Enterprise Development Week, our city recognizes the importance of minority-owned businesses and the impact they have on every community. And whereas Hutchinson's economy is made stronger by the business enterprises owned by people of color and minorities, such as restaurants, retail shops, entertainment spaces, and others. And whereas during Minority Enterprise Development Week, we recognize that our city and our economy are stronger because of the hardworking men and women who comprise Hutchinson's minority business community. Now therefore, I, Jade Pyros de Carvalho, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim September 18 through 24 as Minority Enterprise Week and encourage all residents to join in celebration and solidarity, and further urge all residents to actively support minority-owned enterprises in the City of Hutchinson. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, Council and Mayor. Really excited about celebrating this week and just continuing to bring that momentum we have in our community around minority-owned businesses. There's a lot of feedback that we've been hearing on just the work that needs to be done and making our business community feel included in the ecosystem. And I'm grateful for the partners at Startup Hutch and Reno County Hutchinson Chamber of Commerce for continuing to push that through our minority business mingles and other events we've had, putting in that work. So really excited to celebrate that and encourage all Hutchinson citizens to go shop, eat, spend some money on a minority-owned business.
Okay, we have another proclamation for National Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas the Hispanic Heritage observance began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson and was expanded to Hispanic Heritage Month by President Ronald Reagan in 1988. And whereas the theme for 2022's National Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrated from September 15 to October 15, is Unidos, Inclusivity for a Stronger Nation, which encourages us to ensure all voices are represented and welcome to help build stronger communities and a stronger nation. And whereas Kansas's state agencies are becoming more culturally sensitive and more accessible, creating materials that better meet the needs of the Latino and Hispanic community, including offering materials in Spanish. And whereas Hispanic and Latinos have participated in the growth and development of our state and our country through their labor that continues to this day. And whereas Hutchinson's Hispanic population is estimated at 13%, while the national population of Hispanics is estimated at 52 million people, representing over 17% of the total population, recognized as the largest ethnic minority in the nation. And whereas Hispanics have had a profound and positive influence on our country through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service, and they have enhanced and shaped our national character with centuries-old traditions that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their communities. Now, therefore, I, Jade Pyros de Carvalho, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, do hereby proclaim September 15, 2022 to October 15, 2022 as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, and encourage all citizens to join in this observance. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Well, hello again. This one is always special for me simply because, well, I'm Hispanic and Mexican born and came to this community where I've always, for the most part, felt welcomed and included. There's a great history in our community of Hispanics making Hutchinson their community, helping build this community, helping heal this community, teach this community. So we're very proud of that. And as you know, the Southwest Bricktown is organizing another Hispanic Heritage Fiesta on September 24th at Southwest Bricktown Park in the evening. It's going to be food, there's going to be dancing, there's going to be all sorts of stuff, and I hope our community joins in celebration. And just continuing to highlight the contributions that Hispanics have to this community. Just last week, I was out most of the week, but I got an email sent my way of a crew at a local restaurant that was cooking in the back, and they all spoke Spanish. And I think someone on the way messed up this guy's food, so he went back to the kitchen and yelled at these workers, saying that they should learn to speak English. That they were horrible and that they didn't give any service, and he was incredibly disrespectful, specifically because they were Hispanic. And these folks didn't know what to do. I said, well, what can I do? Can I help, bring an investigation or whatever? No, we just want to talk to someone because we felt hurt. And this is the reality for a lot of folks still in our community. This is a very real thing that I think a lot of us take for granted, that just because of the color of our skins or the languages we speak, we are going to be harassed or attacked for it. And it's a painful thing for me to realize, to know that it's still happening constantly. And so during this month, I hope that if you're not one of those persons that goes out after people of color, you at least take some time to celebrate it, to enjoy a new food, to listen to some Spanish music, to connect with your Hispanic friends, to celebrate at the Hispanic Heritage Month Fiesta, whatever it is. Take some time to acknowledge the struggles and the contributions of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next item, please.
Item 5, oral communications from the audience.
Okay, this is the portion of the meeting where those in the audience are invited to come before the council on items that are not on the agenda. We do ask that you limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes and make them respectful in nature. I recognize that there are many in the audience today who want to address the issue of the stoplight near Prairie Hills Middle School. So I'll invite you to go ahead and come to the podium, and bear in mind that there are many people who want to speak on this issue, so please do observe the time limits as much as possible. We're eager to hear everybody's thoughts. So.
Well, I'll go first since
Good morning.
it directly affects our school. So I'm Cindy Couchman. I'm the superintendent at Bueller Schools, USD 313. Years ago, it was the reason I think the stoplight was put up when the bridge was being worked on. So first off, I want to thank every single one of you city council members and Gary and the mayor specifically for your response to my emails and questions. I know I sent a lot of questions. I think that we both all want the same thing. That was very clear, is we want safety of our kids and our community. We want efficiency of traffic flow. And I think that common ground is really how I want to approach it. And I appreciated Greg Fast. He came out and actually observed some before school and after school traffic along with John. And that involvement is just so appreciated. So I know that when you guys make decisions, it will come from a place of knowledge, and I appreciate that. Gary was very responsive in sending me the traffic study also that was conducted, had some great conversations with him, along with some lawyers. Expensive solutions, right? You could put in roundabouts and expand Lucille and widen it, put in sidewalks. There are some great solutions. But the most obvious and easiest solution is signage and putting in, getting that reduced speed limit at that intersection. You come over that hill, just what would that be? East of the intersection. There is reduced 45 miles an hour, but without the lights, it's easy to blow through that intersection. I mean, I've done it and I know it's sitting there and I'm like, oh, that was the intersection. I just went through it. Speeding. And, so don't pull me over. I've done it, I admit it, but I did that like full knowledge, but I apologized to myself in the car. So what I would like to see, and I've seen it and I've talked to people, it is doable, is to put lights where it's speed limit with great big flashers around the signs that says, and you can really only, even if you reduced it just from 7 to 8 and 2:30 to 3:30. And you can put signage, when flashing, reduce speed limits, intersection ahead. Like, let them know this is a big intersection approaching you and you need to be aware. Like, don't just fly through it. It is concerning. Left-hand turns from Lucille onto 30th are dangerous. We have rerouted our buses to try to take right-hand turns. It's cost us time. It's costing us money as far as time on for labor and also gas, but we're willing to do that because I think whether there's a flashing light or not, or even if there's a reduced speed limit, turning left onto off of 30th off of Lucille onto 30th is dangerous. You've got the sun is glaring right there. You've got cars flying over that little hill. I don't know if you've seen the video that's been posted. I'm assuming you have. There's a video that's posted from a drone. Nick Hemphill, I believe, is the one who posted it, and it shows it, and you can just see cars darting left and right. We actually have some kids that cross that 30th, which is, it's scary, it's terrifying watching them run across 30th to get to their homes. But really, as far as traffic flow, and if I was to say, is there an issue with traffic flow with the stoplight? I don't think traffic is backing up. I really don't. I think the issue is safety. Safety of people turning onto that road, and I think that a really great addressing of it is slowing down that speed limit and putting some flashing lights around the speed limit sign, even if you just did it during dismissal and arrival time. I appreciate the data that Gary had sent me a couple weeks ago, and I really appreciate your guys' involvement in this. This would have been easy to just we've made our decision, move on. But your engagement in it and the community's engagement in it it shows you the safety of our students, and community is really paramount.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a quick question for you, Paul. I know that a lot of feedback has been that we can't introduce school speed zones in schools outside of K through 6. Is that a hard and fast rule, or do we have flexibility to do that, right? Or is that just a tradition that we only?
Don't know that it's a tradition for a school zone, but all of those are established by engineering standards. And that's what I would advise the council to do. Follow engineering standards because it's the law. If you look at our standard traffic ordinance, it says in the very beginning of it that we are required to follow those standards.
We didn't follow the standards when we put the light in by the Cosmosphere. So I was just curious why.
And we also didn't follow the standard when we put a yield sign up on Van Buren Street and Heather Parkway.
Yeah, so.
I remember that
Your
discussion.
city attorney is advising you to follow those standards because that's the law.
Well, let's hear from others in the audience, and Cindy, if you don't
Thank
mind
you.
sticking around in
Yep.
case we have some questions.
I appreciate, and seriously, I do. I want to end again with thank you guys. I appreciate all of your service. I know what it's like to sit on that and listen to people come
Well,
and talk. So thank
Cindy,
you.
I have one more thing to say, and I'll say it publicly. I appreciate your attitude in your email. It's so refreshing.
Yes.
It was, how do we get to solutions for this problem, not, not hammer,
Thank
It
you.
was very refreshing.
Thank you.
A marked contrast with other communications. So, okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this topic? Okay, great.
So my name's Greg Benz, and I live at 2801 Inverness. And Cindy, I really appreciate all your comments too. I just want to give a perspective from us that live east of that intersection, and I'm going to read about 8 points here, and I think some of her solutions are probably exactly right at the end. But so just some of the bullet points. So we live east of there. We've been living there for 15 years. So we have to pass this intersection. There's no way to go to Hutchinson to do anything other than pass this intersection every day for everything you do. So we guess both of us 6 or 8 times a day, and there's hundreds of people that are the same way we are as far as that goes. So in the 3 years that the temporary lights have been there, we've seen multiple 4 to 8 cars stacked up, because a single lone car will come down Lucille. Now these are outside the 1 hour time periods on the morning and afternoon, but a lone car will come, stop, turn right, and he'll stack up a lot of cars because there's a lot more traffic obviously on 30th all the time than there is on Lucille. So that's a reality. And I've talked to several friends that live out there. They have the same issue there. So just a little bit of math here, and I think Cindy's point's well taken, but an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, there's 180 school days, so that's 360 hours of real problems. There's 8,760 hours in a year, so it's 4% of the time, and 96% of the time really not needed. So, so that's the math there. I wanted to look up, well, how safe is it traveling in a bus in America? In 2020, there was 38,000 fatalities, vehicle fatalities, in nationally, 42,000 in 2021, and on average in the last 10 years, 5 passengers of school buses have been killed. So, school bus travel is absolutely the safest method of traveling other than maybe an armored car. I don't know, but really safe. So, and you kind of think about, I'm not a bus driver, but I think a lot of the bus drivers have to go in and out of subdivisions, carrying kids in and out, but they're on 45-mile-an-hour zones all the time, getting out, turning right and left, and it's not safe anytime, obviously, but it's safe because of the vehicle that they're driving. So the last 15 years, I asked my wife, I said, have you ever seen, we go a lot, have you seen a pedestrian going through there, kid, adult? We haven't seen one in 15 years. Now there probably is some, but we haven't seen them. And I think the traffic light study is showing that it's not necessary. But with all these points, if you guys wanted to have a study session, I would be happy to volunteer to help exchange ideas to make it better for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And I know you and others who live in that area have been on the other side of this issue for all 3 years since it's been put up. So appreciate your perspective as well. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council? Please approach the podium and state your name and zip code.
My name, excuse me, my name is Diane Cannon, and I am a school bus driver for Bueller. The week before school started on August 16th, the administration was notified that the city intended to remove the traffic signal. No advance notice. We've been told there is certain criteria needed to justify putting a traffic light up at the intersection. But what about the many big changes that have been made with the start of the new school year? The changes will affect this intersection tremendously. Number one, school bus driver shortage. We have always had a shortage of drivers, but this year it is critical. So much so that there have been changes implemented to try and get all students to school on time. The first change made was arrival time. Prairie Hills Middle School and Bueller High now have start times, excuse me, beginning before the 3 elementary schools. There are 13 Bueller buses that are at Prairie Hills Middle School, with 3 out-of-district buses that come in, 2 from Haven and 1 from Nickerson. Plum Creek and Union Valley have gone from 5 buses to 2 at each school. Having the older kids start first allows the drivers at Prairie Hills to help pick up the elementary kids. Some drivers have been asked to double up on routes. This year, I will have 2 elementary routes. The combined routes, I will have 45 kids in completely different areas of town. My Plum Creek kids are getting to Plum Creek late some mornings. I'm not picking up all of my kids. The parents that are able agree that they will take them in the mornings, helping us to all get there on time. There's no time for these students to sit and have breakfast. They must grab something and head to class with their breakfast. Number 2, school time changes. I'm always hearing that we did fine without the light. Let's just say we got by. We had a bond issue pass building a new Plum Creek Elementary School and building on to Prairie Hills Middle School. Plum Creek opened in 2014, and this is when 6th graders began attending Prairie Hills Middle School. It went from 7th and 8th graders to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. With the shortage of bus drivers this year, parents that have both age groups will have to drop off at Prairie Hills first and then go to the grade schools with their younger kids. There is a large attendance at Prairie Hills Middle School. There are 550 students plus teachers and staff. Many more cars will be there than we've ever experienced before. This many people trying to get to the same location at the same time with 2 entrances. Not ideal even in perfect conditions. The difference in the new bridge opening is wonderful, but diverting traffic to 43rd to help congestion at 30th would be a mistake. This is not an intersection built to handle that kind of traffic. Students walking. Though we don't have many, there are Prairie Hills Middle School students that walk both directions, north and south, on Lucille. The ones walking south will have to cross 30th Street without a light. When traveling east on 30th toward Lucille, the speed limit is 45 miles per hour. Traveling west on 30th, it is 55 miles per hour, slowing to 45 at Ridgecrest. When 30th doesn't have a light, drivers won't slow down. A speed reduction should happen going both ways. I'm not a bus driver standing here complaining about awful traffic. I'm a bus driver that is concerned about my students arriving to school on time. What I'm trying to bring to your attention is I'm having a difficult time getting my students to school on time with a light. Are we supposed to see how late they'll be without a light? Yes, to some, the light is a big inconvenience. So is being behind a school bus. But what is inside that school bus should be a concern to every single one of us, and you should make it safe and efficient for students to get to school on time. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate all the time you took to explain the situation to me on the phone. I'm sure you did the same with other council members, so your passion for these kids is evident. I think it is the timing is an issue that we could probably discuss with the school district how best to resolve that if we don't put in additional safeguards. But one other thing you mentioned, Diane, is that you received no advance notice. And so I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the city's, particularly the council's and mine, failure to communicate properly to the school district and discuss this with them before we made that decision. So that was certainly our downfall, and I recognize it has caused chaos that probably wouldn't have occurred if we would have had better communication. So I do apologize for our lack of forewarning on this issue. That's a very good point, and we will do better in the future. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Laura Meyer-Dick. I am the Vice President of Bueller Education, Board of Education, and I don't want to repeat everything that Cindy's already said, but I do appreciate all your work. Cindy has communicated how great you guys have been to work with and communicate with, and I think that's all we want to do is just collaborate and find the best solution for kids. I live, as Greg does, east of there, and the traffic, if I took one morning, I went out Inverness just to Lucille, and if the chief wants a revenue source, Lucille is a great revenue source because people are flying both north and south on Lucille. And then the other morning, I joined Cindy on the corner and watched, and I agree with Cindy. I don't think there is a need for a stoplight. I agree. I think we just need some additional signage. Mainly, it's the speed of the cars coming from the east. I mean, they are flying, and as Cindy, I have also sped through there. Most people think it's 55 that live out there, as you can see from your traffic study. So I just ask you guys to consider some safety signages. We do have a school zone in front of it, so expand it with, lights. I know Paul says it's the standard, but I don't think exceeding the standard is going to be cause for harm for the council, especially if we save one life. And we also reduce the stress of our bus drivers, because that's what really was concerning to me, is watching our bus drivers try to turn left. I mean, I would not want to be driving a bus full of children and trying to pull out in front of that traffic. And our bus drivers are very important. We have kids right now, I think we have 90 kids that are not able to be bused, and some of those kids don't have a way to school. And that's one of the things, we need to get them to school for their education. So I just asked you to consider some safer, just ease the speed there, because it is coming pretty fast. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm curious if someone from engineering can go over the traffic study or comment on that just for the public's knowledge. I don't know that has been widely shared with our community, so just for transparency's sake.
And Jeff, could you give a little history, maybe Paul can, on when we reduced the mile per hours to 45? And does that meet the traffic standards? I mean,
You're asking me when speed limits are reduced?
well, I don't know.
Engineering and Public Works handles that.
Okay, Jeff can answer that question then.
Just like, no, I can't.
Nobody knows when it was reduced. Jeff Shank Engineering. Yeah, we haven't done any looking back. I can look back and see when it was reduced. So, yes. We started looking at this. It was put up originally as a temporary signal, which we all know, and then we started looking at it for removal. Thought it would be best to do a full study, just to make sure that we weren't doing anything out of context. So we did that. There was some discussion of speeding, so we went and did a speed study through there. There is some speeding, but at 95%, 85% clearly aren't, and 95% of traffic is kind of right up there in that top end of that bubble of where you would be probably getting pulled over. So 5% it looks like are probably speeding through the intersection. As far as the study itself, we have JEO performed the study. We just gave them all of the traffic counts, so I'm going to bring Jim up to discuss the study.
Okay. Thanks.
Good morning, Council. I'm Jim Tabobin. I'm with JEO Consulting Group, and we are supporting the city with some traffic engineering services currently. I've been a traffic engineer, transportation planner for over 40 years. We've had the opportunity to look at traffic counts that were collected earlier this spring, I think March, April, May timeframe. As a traffic engineer, when you're looking at an intersection and you're looking at the appropriate traffic control devices to put out there, we have the goals that the superintendent mentioned. We're looking at safety, and we're looking at the efficient movement of traffic. Different traffic control devices, signs, signals, are appropriate with different traffic volumes, different speeds. We want to take a look at sight distance. So there's a number of factors that come into play in selecting a traffic control device. Research over the years has kind of provided those guidelines that the city attorney mentioned that we follow. the manual on uniform traffic control devices. That guidance is really pointing us toward either a sign or a signal that will, minimize the potential for crashes, help move traffic efficiently. So we did take a look at those traffic counts that were done this spring. We looked at the warrants, and what a warrant for a traffic signal is, I guess I should explain that. That is a threshold condition. It's like, it's not a requirement to put a signal in if you meet those traffic volumes, but it is at that point or above, you can start to consider whether a traffic signal is the right device. In this case, we looked at 3 different warrants. Kind of an 8-hour warrant are the traffic volumes at or above certain levels for 8 hours a day. They were not. There's a 4-hour warrant, and again, we looked at those conditions. We did not satisfy the warrant for a signal. And we even looked at a peak hour warrant to see if there's 1 hour during the day that's so bad that the signal's justified. That was not met either. So we went back and the city provided the crash data for the intersection, I think going back from the years 2015 up through 2020. We had 7 crashes that occurred in the area of the intersection. 4 of those involved animals. We had 2 rear-end collisions and then 1 right-angled collision. So collisions between vehicles was essentially about 1 every other year. So that so that is an intersection that really is operating pretty safely. I believe the majority of that time was with stop control. And remind me when the signal might have gone in.
Signal went up in 2019.
2019.
So there was 1.5 years with the signal up.
Okay.
Crash data.
Okay. I went out there to watch the intersection this morning just to see how it was operating. I reviewed the aerial photography. That was, a very nice video to give you a look at about, 20 minutes in a 2-minute time frame. You see, yes, in the morning you've got predominantly westbound traffic on 30th, and then you've got eastbound traffic turning north to go to the school, southbound traffic turning right to come back into the city. Typically right turning traffic is not delayed much. You do see cars stacking up on Lucille when you have a left turner or through driver that's at the stop sign. But once those drivers have cleared, the rest of the traffic moves pretty well. So looking at the traffic volumes we were provided, looking at the crash data we were provided, and it appears that the 2-way stop is operating efficiently. The sight distance out there is good for a driver at the stop sign, so that's not a concern for me. Anyway, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. I would say at this point, with the information we're given, I think a 2-way stop's appropriate out there. Now that the signal's no longer there in operation, traffic patterns may have shifted somewhat. So I mean, that is something that could be done. You could take additional traffic counts if you wanted to get a better idea of what's occurring today. I think the city, followed the proper procedures. They put the signal on flash for a period of time. They've got some temporary warning signs out there to notify drivers of the new stop condition. So anyway, I'm here to answer questions for you.
Jim, go ahead, Sarah.
So when I think of this, I always think of the light that's off Monroe in front of Allen. It only operates during school hours. What are the traffic warrants for a light like that?
There really is not a signal warrant for that situation.
Because I was
And
just
I'm not
curious.
familiar with that location, so
It's a school crossing light over there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's to help kids. Like
Oh,
would be
okay.
for a different purpose, but it's to help because in Hutchinson, if you live in Hutchinson, we don't get busing. There is no busing unless you have an
Okay.
IEP or a special needs student.
Okay,
Everybody in Hutch has to get their kids to school in the morning.
all right.
And it can be quite challenging because my kids are 4 years apart, so I'm trying to get to 2 different schools at the same time
Yeah.
through conjunction, like the cars are crazy because Hutchinson does not offer any kind of busing.
Okay.
So it's just madness in the mornings.
So I may have misspoke.
And
You're talking about a
I'm-
school crossing itself and a signal for that school crossing. Yes,
It's-
there is a warrant for
It's
that.
a light, I know, but it's a stoplight. It's like,
Mhm.
it turns red or green, it's just kind of active. It's a stoplight that's only activated during a certain type of day,
It's a
right?
green light that's actuated by pedestrians.
Oh, is it actuated by pedestrians pushing buttons?
Correct.
I didn't know that. I was wondering. That's what I was wanting to know. I didn't know how it worked because sometimes it's
Yeah.
green, sometimes it's red.
Mhm.
It's only works during school time. So I didn't know. I'm trying to think of, I tend to try to think of creative solutions. So I didn't know if there
Mhm.
was a way to have one that operated just during peak hours. Is that a thing?
Yeah, there is not, and the reason for that
Yeah.
is, it's a device that's out there 24 hours a day, so you're kind of looking at, yes, there may be a benefit during that one peak hour, but there may be a larger adverse impact at the other 23 hours of the day.
'Cause-
So you're really trying to find that right mix that overall provides the best safety and efficiency.
Okay. Because you don't want people getting confused.
Right, and I would say that, the general perception of a traffic signal is it's a safety device. It really is not. Where it does improve safety is if you've had a lot of right-angle collisions at a location and the signal's warranted. Yes, a signal will help reduce right-angle collisions. What you'll often see is that the rear-end collisions go up because some people are trying to, run that yellow and not have to stop. Other people are stopping quickly for it. So you do create a lot more conflicts with the signal, and you often see that an increase in the number of rear-end collisions.
What are around some of the suggestions for the extra yielding lights during school hours for some of the reduced speeds and stuff like that? What are the warrants for that?
Typically, those are used where you have an established school crossing, where you have students crossing the roadway. Then you can consider, usually you're taking a look at how many students are crossing there, what the volume of traffic is, what the speed of traffic is, so you're looking at those types of issues. So I would want to know, how many children or how many students are actually crossing the location. We certainly have information about the traffic volumes and speeds. And then typically you would see like a network of sidewalks kind of feeding that location where the crossing is located. So we don't have the children walking in the streets or, beside the road.
Yeah. Jim, I guess that was my question, similar along those lines. In your 40 years of transportation planning, you talked about when the traffic control devices are warranted, but the idea of expanding the school speed limit zone to include that intersection would be something that you think would not be favorable, or would that be less or more safe? It seems to me, anecdotally, with no engineering background, it would be safer, but I don't know.
The challenge with speed limits and how speed limits impact safety is the real desire is to try to get everybody traveling the same speed. So if you have everybody moving the same speed, there's very few conflicts between vehicles. It's easier for, say, a driver on Lucille to make a judgment. Is that gap in traffic on 30th adequate if everybody's going the same speed? When you get a mix of high speeds and low speeds, it makes that side road driver's task more difficult. And just putting a lower speed limit out there will not necessarily make everybody drive slower. It oftentimes increases that mix of speeds and can make things worse. So I've not reviewed the speed data at this point, so I don't want to offer too many opinions on what's going on out there. I would say if you have an established school crossing there, that might be a method to look at, a device to put out there. But again, I'd want, I'd,
Gotta
I'd want to
slow
do a
down,
little,
too.
Yeah, that's
a little
terrifying.
more.
Well,
So
so,
it might help, but again, it may not help. But I'd want to go out there and take a look at, again, where is the speed limit dropping? Do we
it would probably need to
provide-
drop quite a bit further out
Yeah.
for it to be effective.
Yeah, and I mean, what drivers are actually a really good judge of what is a safe speed to travel a roadway. I mean, they're kind of balancing, they want to get somewhere quickly or reasonably quickly. They also want to get there safely. So drivers are kind of balancing that risk and reward type of information. But they really do a good job of overall selecting a safe speed for a roadway. And that's why speed limits are typically set on an 85th percentile speed. We're going to say 85% of the drivers are a good judge of what's appropriate. And then as you start getting over that, okay, those are the drivers maybe law enforcement needs to target and try to change their behavior. But by and large, most of the people in this room, if they were to drive that roadway, they would choose a safe speed to travel. And what research has shown is that if you kind of go with what those 85% of the drivers are telling you, you'll probably find a speed limit that's going to keep your crashes to a minimum. So that's why traffic engineers get hung up on that 85th percentile speed. But it's that, and it's trying to have consistent speeds in your overall traffic flow.
Yeah. Well, Jim and Jeff, I'm curious if you feel like an additional traffic study in a few weeks based on the different traffic patterns is necessary. Would it be helpful? Would it just muddy this conversation?
I mean, we definitely can take into counsel from you guys of what you would like to see. I think it would be something you would want to spread out quite a bit further than a couple weeks, if it was me, just to really let everything kind of level out and see what is arising. Because, I mean, what we hear is pretty consistent with, I think, the findings. And so, I mean, as far as looking at different warrants, we can look at some of those with what we have now. But yeah, we can definitely reevaluate something if that's what you feel would be the best way forward.
What is the peak warrant for this intersection?
There is a peak hour warrant, and I'm trying to remember the exact number. I can give you the numbers for the 4-hour warrant and the 8-hour warrant pretty well. But
What's the 4-hour warrant?
4-hour warrant, you're looking at about 525 vehicles in an hour for the major roadway, so for 30th Street in this case. And then you're looking at about, I believe it's, well, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Under the 8-hour warrant, there is two different ways of looking at it. When traffic volumes are more balanced on both roads, there's a given set of numbers you look at there. When you have a situation like here where 30th Street is definitely a heavier volume street than Lucille, then you're looking at about 525 vehicles an hour on the major road and about 53 vehicles per hour on the more minor approach. But you need to satisfy that condition for 8 hours in a day.
The reason I'm asking is, are we anywhere close to the warrant levels with
We're not,
traffic study that was done?
because we went back and did that. We actually, when we took a look at the traffic volumes, they were collected March, April, May. We actually looked for the heaviest volume day on 30th, and then we also looked for the heaviest volume day on Lucille. And those did not coincide, but we went ahead and said, okay, if those happened on the same day, so that we had really the highest traffic volumes we could have to look at the warrants. And no, we still did not need to warrant. I think we met like 3 of the 8 hours, and then on the 4-hour warrant, we met 3 of the 4 hours there, but the 4th hour was quite a ways away from meeting that condition.
Is there any condition or breakdown where you look at one lane versus the other? I mean, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, almost all the traffic's gonna be on one lane and not the other.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. No, I mean, typically, you're looking at approach volumes. Typically on a major road, you're combining both approaches, and then you're taking a look at the higher volume approach on the side road. So, like if you look at the south leg of this intersection, there's really very little traffic. So that kind of gets ignored, and you focus on the full amount of traffic that's coming down Lucille from the north.
Other questions from the council?
If we do another traffic study, we definitely want to pick a time period, you know, early November, not holiday weekends, that kind of deal.
Right, you'd definitely want to do it on a school day. You'd want to do it when the weather's nice, and to make sure that those students that are walking are likely to be out there. But certainly with school traffic.
Well, one thing we haven't discussed, and well, we've been discussing it for 10 years, is Lucille, and the fact that that school was built on an unimproved road, and you know, there's been no appetite to widen it because it's owned in thirds by the city, the county, and the township. And so it's a unique challenge, but I have had preliminary discussions with the county commission chair on if there's interest in opening up a conversation with, between city and county to try to have a more permanent solution. Because we can talk about, you know, signage and speed limits, but really if we had, would there be benefit to a broader road? I mean, you're the engineer.
Well, again, drivers are choosing speeds by what they see. So what they're seeing out there today is a 2-lane roadway with, you know, no curb and gutters, so ditches on the side. It's a fairly rural looking situation. And that can slow drivers down if you widen a roadway.
Can make it
curb
worse.
and gutter, you almost might make it more attractive to go faster. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are, you know, sometimes you get a result that you weren't expecting.
Oh, that's an
by making some
interesting, yeah,
changes. But
interesting insight.
But if we do have student traffic, if we do have students walking along Lucille, having a sidewalk or a better path for them to follow would definitely be a plus.
Okay. Thank you. Are there others in the audience who would like to comment on this issue? Please approach the podium.
My name is Jack Newber. I live in the Southeast District. Just a little, I've listened to all these points. You also have to, it might be in the study that you've already studied. The last 3 years, with the reason why we put the stoplight was for that one bridge, but we also did a second bridge on Apple Lane in that same time frame. So there was detours going right to that intersection. So we had a lot of traffic in the last 3 years. And I don't think I take that intersection all the time. So just remember your city workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When they put the sticks down on the street to do the traffic counts, right now, there's one on the east side of Lucille. There's not one on the west side of Lucille, so the only traffic that is being counted is it, I have pictures.
Sorry. So right now, we actually aren't doing a traffic count. Right now, we're doing a speed study because we were notified about potential speeds.
Okay,
So this
that's
is not a traffic count.
Okay, disregard that.
Thank you.
Can I make one more point?
Yeah, please do.
So at Inverness is where the 55 to 45 starts.
Mhm.
So we come to that, to get on 30th, that's what we do every morning. It's 55 right to the intersection and then 45. So there's a really good distance between staying at 45 to get through that intersection at this point. Not that I don't think we should reduce it during
Okay.
school hours either, but there's a good distance there.
That's a good
It's
point.
not right on top of that intersection.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sally DeVinny, and I'm a Bueller school bus driver. I've driven for over 20 years, and my motto has always been students come first. And some of the statements, I'm gonna make some enemies, and I'm sorry. But there's been some statements made that I'm not very happy. I was gonna be quiet, I was gonna come up here. But the more I've been hearing, I'm like, what are we for? Are we for the money, safety of, don't put lights up because of this and that? Or are we here for students and safety of people? What's more important? You know, I wouldn't have been driving a school bus for 20-some years. I've carried some of these people's kids. What's more important? Really, tell me.
Well, I think
And-
the data supports the
and-
decision we made was safer, and so we're for safety. This isn't necessarily a monetary decision. We
Oh,
want
I
to make
thought
the
somebody was
safest
talking
decision.
back at me.
Yeah.
But before the stoplight, we had stop signs. And you say, oh, people will stop and this and that. Well, you know what? Somebody hit me at 30th and Lucille. It was just a minor hit, but somebody hit me because they seen a bus coming, and they did what I call a California stop. Then when the lights came up, I'm not saying they wouldn't have hit me if the lights weren't on there. That's not what I'm saying. But what gets me is, I'm going back to my old model. What's more important, our kids? Really? Really, what's more important? If you can say that the students aren't that important, I'll quit my job today. And I'll be glad to quit my job. And if I could, I would transfer each child myself to make sure that, I'm not saying I wouldn't have a wreck in my own car. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm getting close, very close, to saying enough is enough. And yeah, I might be out here, because some people might say, well, she's getting old, you know, we gotta, you know, but.
Can you describe
And
some of the
coming-
challenges you have
yes,
in the morning?
They were saying they were diverting buses so they wouldn't turn left to cause a problem. In the morning, there's only 2 buses going left. And they're like 10 minutes apart. In the afternoon, there's only 1 bus going left to Bueller, and that's me. So the buses going left in one way is not the problem. All the other buses are going towards Hutch.
Okay.
And now, with cars coming down 43rd, there's cars being backed up from Prairie Hills to 43rd. The buses that needs to go to Plum Creek and get other kids, deliver their kids so they can go to Plum Creek, they are having to be stalled out and getting to school late.
Where are you getting stalled out at?
Huh?
Where are you getting stalled? Sorry, where are you getting stalled out at? I have the map up and I'm just trying.
What I'm saying is, when people are coming in, you know, both ways.
Okay.
When they're coming from 43rd to go south to Prairie Hills, they might be trying to get in, because last year I was coming from Plum Creek going south once the bridge was open, which is great. I had to stop forever waiting to try to get in, because the parents, once they pick up their parents in the afternoon, or if they leave them in the morning, they'll get out of the driveway and turn to go north. So that means
So you're having problems coming
until you
from
drive
Bueller
it, yeah.
and having to make the right-hand turn into Lucille and then the left-hand
Into
turn
the school, so
out.
that causes problems on the north side. You added more cars on 43rd. So that means you just diverted the traffic north instead of, we didn't solve the problem, we just made it go north.
Okay, so they come out of school and you head north, and then you're having to take a left-hand turn towards Hutch?
Yep.
And that's where you're having the traffic issues
Yeah.
now because
Now, the
they've
reason, in
diverted
the
it?
afternoon, the reason we don't have as many traffic people coming in and out of, from 30th and Lucille, in the afternoon, there's not that many cars. Sure, it's easy for us to get out some. The reason is because sports is on. They don't ride the bus right after school.
Mm-hmm.
The sports, so you ought to drive, when I drove the late activity last week. Now I'm getting in the evening towards what would have been counted in the afternoon when school let out. Also, what ought to be considered too, when we have games at our school, that's gonna be parents coming from other schools to see their child play. That's gonna be adding more cars.
So your problem is cars are going really fast like this, and
Cars
you're
will be
needing the,
coming, yeah,
you need the cross where there's empty, so that you can't.
either way, it's gonna
Yeah.
be
So
a
the
chaos.
main issue here is not that you have kids crossing some crazy fast intersection. It's trying to get the buses in and out.
buses, cars. I've even talked to some firemen. And there's a fire station right there on 30th. And some of the firemen said, not necessarily the one station there on 30th, but
Yeah.
others. And I know them personally. And they've said they hated to see the light go. Now, I think firemen carry quite a bit of weight too.
So
You
it's,
know.
the light was giving the ability for people to make a left-hand turn over traffic. Otherwise, you end up having to
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
And I get that because I've been talking about the same issues with Fifth Street and
Mhm.
Adams,
Yeah.
and the fact that we don't have a signal that gives a right-of-way to a left-hand turn.
And I
so we
think that
constantly
speaks
have-
to
we
the,
constantly have car accidents there.
I think that speaks to the larger issue of this conversation. How are we gonna make decisions? Are we gonna make decisions based on research and data that shows what's safer? Or are we gonna make decisions based on, who has the loudest voice at the table? And so Fifth
Yeah.
and Adams doesn't have a voice, so they never get a light. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, I think the traffic data would support
Fifth and Adams, yeah,
Yeah, to be honest with you. I think that needs to be a traffic study.
yeah.
But I think it's the same issue on a bigger scale. People can't turn left. And so what happens is you creep out there and then some people take chances when they can't see
Yeah.
fully. Right? So then you're getting
And
nervous.
also what makes it dangerous, we have two little hills. Coming from Everness, you go downhill a little bit. Coming from around Apple Lane, you go down a little bit. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not just saying bus drivers and parents going to Lucille.
Mhm.
We have a gentleman across the fire station. He's got his two legs amputated, and he sits there every day, and waves and and stuff like that. And he even says, he says, I have no business about the school and all that because he doesn't have any kids. But he says, I hate to see the light go. Because he said it would give people a chance to pause and either go, and some people wants to go south from Lucille on 30th. Well, to go straight, they gotta wait until both lanes are clear. So like I said, that's it. But the more I sit here and listen to some of this, it might be true, I don't know. But to me, my kids are more important. And that has always been, because I wouldn't have been a bus driver for over 20 years.
Yeah,
And
well-
some of the kids that I've had, the biggest part of the kids, I still keep contact with them. I got college kids, some that brings me their kids, and look. And I go, wow, I'm getting old. That's the first thing I think of when I see the little ones, you know, from my kids. And they always acknowledge me. So,
After reading the study, I don't know if a light is warranted. But what concerns me, actually, which I was unaware of, is it has to be pretty hard with the hills and how fast people are going. I'm surprised that the school zone, there isn't, like, that's not in any kind of school zone.
Yeah. There's a
Just-
little bit of a, there's a little bit of a
That's
zone
it.
there. Well, ma'am, we really appreciate your service and again, your passion for the kids. I think we are all committed to doing what's safest for our kids. And, you know, it's not an ideal situation. I lived in the first house behind that school for 6 years on the corner of Lucille and Spyglass, both before and after the light. So I recognize that it's really not ideal situation. But what I'm needing from the council, this is not a formal item on the agenda. There's no action on the agenda, but I need a feel from you all about how best to move forward. We've taken the light out. The recommendation from city attorney and engineering is that we observe traffic patterns for a few months or several weeks to see how people adjust. I, for one, believe further conversations with the school district are warranted to try to alleviate some of these other concerns, especially with the bus drivers not getting their kids to school on time, and how we can maybe address that. But city staff will need direction from the council on what you want to do.
And I just want to bring to your attention, Matt Brett's office reached out to me because some of us drivers went door to door with all of our parents having a petition signed. And then Matt reached out to me and they did an online petition. And we have over 2,000 signatures from parents that want the light to stay. And I don't know if you need copies of those, which we can get, but there is a large number of parents that want the light to stay.
Thank you. I do believe city manager Gary Meager made us aware of those petitions.
Yes, we have a copy.
Hi, my name is Ruth Poovey. I live in 01. I don't have much to do with what's going on. I'm a retired teacher, 1 year out. And so I believe what you're really needing here is education and enforcement. You know, that 15% that aren't following the speed limits, I think we need to get somebody out there and do something about it. Because 15% is a large number, actually. I mean, it really is. And education with the signage, I agree with that. I live across from the high school, on, just across Severance, and I try to cross that crosswalk twice every morning. And we need enforcement there, too.
Yeah.
Because they will not stop for that crosswalk. And it's frustrating. So I can see what it'd be like if I were trying to cross 30th.
Yeah, that's really good input. There you go, Chief. And have we had officers out there during this transition time to help educate our drivers?
I've been educated by an officer before.
Jeff Hooper, Chief of Police. Yeah, we actually put officers out there at the end of last week, both at the peak times in the morning and the afternoon, to monitor speeds and try to get people to slow down. I think the numbers that they gave me were similar to the traffic numbers that engineering did. I mean, the highest speed that we had coming through there from the east was 57 miles an hour, which is pretty excessive and that's dangerous, but the majority of the calls were within the speed limit cars were within the speed limit that's designated out there. And so We certainly can do increased traffic enforcement out there during this transition time as people are getting used to that, the stop sign and things like that, just to make it safer for our roadways.
Yeah, it might be interesting to maybe have some kind of rotation basis in our school districts where random enforcement.
Well, we are actually, this time of year, our traffic unit is 100% dedicated to all our school zones, so we're doing traffic enforcement on the schools. In fact, on my way to work, one of my officers had a car stopped in the school zone this morning, so we're hitting those pretty heavy. We do at the beginning of every school year and back from Christmas break to get people, we'll give out warnings for the first week or so unless it's really excessive, but it's more of an education piece.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, can I say something?
Absolutely. We're waiting for you, Steve.
Okay. I worked with city for 30-some years, excuse me. I am a senior traffic signal technician. I did work on those lights. And I went out there a couple days off my experience of being a senior technician. And I hate to tell you this, but I agree they need to keep the light. I see a lot of quorum. Quorum is a traffic light thing. Left turns. Can I have the engineer up here? I'd like to ask you some questions, please, sir. Yes, sir. We had over there at our stadium, we put a light up for the pedestrians called the Hawk system.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any Hawk system that makes a left-hand turn system at all? I mean, the light, if we put detection on your left turns going into the school, the Hawk light will come on showing the left arrow. I've been out of the trade for about 3 years now.
Okay.
Do they make a Hawk system with that kind of system yet?
Not that I am aware of. I mean, that's typically to stop traffic on, in this case, like 30th.
Right.
To allow students to cross that street.
Well, in this case, it would stop the traffic on 30th Street, allow them to make the left turn. Okay.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
But no, I don't believe I've seen that application and it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, me sitting here thinking about this, and I mean, I should be talking up because I'm a technician for the city, was a technician for the city of Hutchinson. I do believe they need a light, just off my experience. I'm a certified traffic signal technician for a long time, and I do need a light. Those cars coming off that one from the school, ain't no way they can get across. I mean, especially that time of day when kids are going. And I can see the bus problem. That big old bus trying to make a turn. Oh my gosh! And I seen your bus. Might have been your bus that I was looking at. So. I know we have laws and regulations we have to follow. I know I had to follow a lot of laws when I was a technician. I know about all the warrants and all that stuff. We have to meet a certain warrant to be legally put a light up. Also, we have to meet the warrants to legally take a light down. So, that being said, it has to come to the governing body to make that decision. Now, it's a very risky thing for us to make a decision about putting a light out without the warrant because it's a bad deal. But what made me speak up is you, ma'am, saying who we worry about, the kids or what. So, that being said, Mayor, I'd like for us to do a better extensive, another study with it, with more extents in it. And I understand what you, sir, you're the engineer, okay? This is a technician. I'm a little bit below you as you're the engineer, but
Got
I
a
do
lot of
know
good
about traffic
experience.
lights. I do know warrants. We had to go to school to get our license and all that stuff. So I even had to go to court before on traffic lights. But I do know where we're at right now. I think we need to make more attention. This is very important to our citizens, and safety is very, very important for our kids. So, like you said before, we didn't have warrants to put up the ones at 11th and over there. We put it up anyway because we were concerned about safety. The people couldn't go across to the football games and stuff like that. So we went up and put up a light. We didn't have a warrant for it. We did it. But on the other hand, warrants keep us safe from litigation. I'm not saying it. But anyway, I thought I'd say my piece, Mayor. I think we have to do a more extensive study. But my feelings, I went up there and looked at it as a traffic signal technician. At my point, what I see right now, there's no way people they'll have more accidents. This is my personal view of my experience. They're gonna have more accidents. Ain't no way that traffic on 30 is gonna stop. They see those. Is it Lucille? I think that's Lucille going to the left for the school. Am I right? That's Lucille, right? I don't see how those, and I can understand why you're late. Traffic is big, man. It's backed up. As soon as you get a left turn going on to Lucille, ain't no way no cars can go over there. So I understand your point because I went up there a couple times. I was kind of in my own car just sitting there watching. So I understand your point of view. So I think at this time, I think we should do a better study to see what we're gonna do. And I thank you for your study, but, and all that, but, I think I should have spoke up just from the experience I have as senior technician. So, thank you, sir, for your, all right. That's all, man. My thing is we do a more study. That's my view.
Thank you.
It's a big decision.
Well, I mean, I think we've heard from residents in that area that think the light's unnecessary. We've heard from the school district that thinks the light's unnecessary, but have some suggestions, other suggestions, and then the bus drivers think it is necessary. So, Greg, thoughts?
Well, I just don't want to make it worse, and that's what I heard the engineer say. When you start adjusting the speed limit, you may in fact make it worse. And I mean, I don't mind doing some more study to make sure that the engineered studies that we've done, we double check that and make sure. I know that the stop signs right now have big flags on them, and hopefully, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I have no problem looking at it a little more. I might not have a problem with lowering the speed limit a little bit. I don't know how this affects us with our liability. I mean, then if we lower the speed limit, somebody rear ends somebody, then all of a sudden the city has some sort of liability that we didn't have before because we went against what the traffic study said. That concerns me. So that's how I feel about it.
One more thing, Mayor. Jeff, yes, come on, I got a question to ask you. Those school crossing lights, when I left, used to flash. We got them all over school. They were battery operated. Could we put one on each side and make them flash, insert the clocks in there that we used to use and put them on at certain times? Could we install them temporarily and see if that makes a difference when the traffic's slowing down? Come to a certain speed, and make our lights flash on and off, our yellow lights, and make them slow down and see if that helps the situation where the people would have time on Lucille to make a turn. I don't know if we have any, I don't know how much experience, but there's battery operated trap lights.
You're talking about like the school zone when you're entering the school zone.
Right,
you have the
right,
flashing light
right.
above the school zone when the school zone's active.
Exactly. Can we operate two of them, and in front of Lucille and back of Lucille, and then study it to see if that would work to slow the traffic down? That would give the school buses time. We can slow the traffic down. That might give them time to turn. I don't know. I'm asking you.
I have conflicting thoughts on it all, to be honest with you. Because if you slow traffic down, sometimes when because I know this from dropping my kids off at school, everybody's going slow. It creates like a giant line of slow cars. And so then you're waiting forever to make that turn because everybody's slowed down. Now everybody going to work is one big log, and then there is no getting through. You just have to sit there and wait and wait and wait. So I've had to devise ways to where I don't have to cross traffic to turn. So like I continue past 11th and then I turn on a down street and then I turn this way and I make a complete loop so that I don't have to cross, and so I have to make these spirals.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's probably why Jeff's suggestion was to wait a couple months or several weeks so that we can observe how people have shifted their traffic patterns to adjust to the new intersection. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Like what happens if you slow everybody down to 20 miles an hour? Do you get these gigantic logs like we have in Hutchinson?
Yes.
And then you can't get through? Like there is no getting through.
Right, and I think that's a whole study in itself. I think Jim alluded
That's
to
what
reducing the speed also starts bringing in bigger variance of people driving speeds, which makes it harder to gauge. Like if this person's driving, you reduced it to 35 and this person's driving 35 and the next person's still coming in at 50, and you're trying to figure out where you're jumping in and out of traffic at. Whereas I can see now, I would have to defer with some other engineers and talk about what things could be done as far as just putting a light on the existing traffic signal temporarily to just try and bring attention to it.
No, these are the lights that are on the side,
right,
on the poles, on the 12-foot poles. And they would come on, say 30 miles. And the whole idea of slowing traffic down with school things on what you said, what I've been taught, it slows people down and gives more gap. When you slow cars down here, it gives a gap for the left turn to seal to come through.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it gives a
Is there,
gap.
cause I get,
But, I mean, I'm
cause
just,
if you have everybody that's trying to get to Hutchinson for work
Mhm.
into that school traffic, and then everybody slows down, they're getting through there, the slower
Okay.
speed,
All right.
are they piling up?
all right,
That's what I'm wondering.
okay, I don't,
I didn't know if there was a way to study both, like
That would-
reducing speeds for a while and studying that, like 6 months, reducing speeds.
Again, I'd have to, we'd have to defer to an engineering study because I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to just randomly change speed limits just to
I
test
didn't
it
know
out and
if
see
you,
how it
I didn't,
happens. and
that's what
then-
I'm asking, like,
right,
is there,
and
have you ever done studies like that in the engineering where you temporarily, like how we did the temporary light, like, I don't know.
I
Can
don't
you
know.
study the difference? Like, where does traffic move better? Is it moving better with slower speeds? Is it moving better at the current speeds? I think you would want to know before we made the decision to lower the speeds.
Right, I think you would have to look at probably something more broad-based of the other communities that have tried it, because
Okay.
typically it's more gathered information off of other communities
That's how
that have
you'd
tried
have to
things,
do
and then
it.
you don't typically just
Make us
want-
the guinea pig.
Right,
Yeah.
don't wanna make your people, or, the traveling public
Yeah,
the guinea pigs and then
confusing,
find
yeah.
out that it made it increasingly
Yeah.
more dangerous, and it was just, so that would be
Yeah.
a whole nother study that you would have to evaluate. And just see if there's any kind of history or data out there from other communities and other, engineering studies, and see if you could find something that may, point to that being an option or something that
Yeah.
you'd be interested in proceeding with.
John, what are your thoughts?
How far east of the intersection is the speed being detected for this recent deal?
It is right at the point where it splits from the 2-lane and it starts widening out, to get to the 3-lane section.
So we are catching some on the lower end that are slowing down for the intersection as part of our speed.
It would be
data.
close.
We're getting some that are 14 miles an hour, 17 miles an hour. The reason I say that is because we have a median that's close to our median's somewhere around 46.3. We also have people at 7 o'clock going 63 miles an hour. Someone was getting home late and going 81 miles an hour at 4 o'clock. I think what we ought to do
There's
for
some
now.
drag racing
Yeah,
along that.
we should do another study,
Mhm.
but I think in the meantime, we need to do some aggressive awareness of the speed limit on Inverness
Mhm.
and even on the other direction, so people are aware, hey, it's 45. It's not that most people are going an average of close to 45, it's the outliers going
Yeah.
from 60, 70 miles an hour down to 30 up in that zone. I don't see any reason why we can't do that now
Yeah, I agree.
and do the study.
In a couple, when would a study be most helpful?
I would defer that with the other engineering firm, JEO. Probably discuss it with them and go over the different options. I think there's a lot of outliers you have to evaluate.
Could you give us a recommendation at the next meeting?
At the next meeting, yes.
That would be really helpful. Do you feel like your department has sufficient direction from the council on, it's already been removed?
I think my direction would be confirm the data that we know. You asked a very philosophical question earlier about, do we choose to believe the data or do we do whatever we want? And, I know the police department is a data-driven department now, the fire department is, it's data. And I think that works to a point. I mean, we do have to make common sense decisions, but that would be my recommendation, to go confirm what we think we know.
Right. And I think, again, we'll bring a recommendation at the next council meeting to, probably for a timeline for the next study.
That'd be great, and continued communication with the school district and the public at large about these
Absolutely.
decisions.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
10 seconds, because I know.
Sure.
Cindy had to leave because she had another presentation she had to make it. So is there anything you need from the school district, and I will relay that to her.
I would just ask that she continue speaking with Gary when he returns about how we can best help the district with some of their challenges, especially with kids arriving late, if there's anything we could be doing right now.
Okay, that sounds great. And I just, when you're studying, it's really just those peak hours that we need to take a look at.
Okay, thank you. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda?
Good morning, Mayor and
Good
council
morning.
members. My name's Heather Jobe. I spoke with you guys last time about the youth city council. I first wanted to thank you guys for your favorable reception. The kids are very excited to be able to bring this program back, so thank you. I just wanted to give you a quick update. I won't take much of your time. Mr. Garza and myself were able to get applications out to the schools. So all schools within the city of Hutch have applications currently. I believe there's also applications down here that kids can access as well. We will be picking up the applications from the schools tomorrow. Our board will meet Thursday and Friday to review applications, just kind of go through them and select some finalists. After that time, we will be proceeding a little bit further with getting together a forum for the candidates. So we're very hopeful that we can schedule that where all of you guys could be in attendance. I think it would be great inspiration for the kids to be able to have all of you guys there when they get to, you know, do the mock version of what you guys do. So
That's awesome.
yeah, we will update you guys with dates as soon as we have them. But do you guys have any questions for me at this time about it?
Do you have do you anticipate that being in September, the forum, or in October?
At this point, we'll probably have to make it the end of September, beginning of October. We got the fair that we want to be mindful of and the kids and everything. So probably be a little bit after that.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you
All
for
right,
your work on that.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay, are there others in the audience who would like to address the council? Please state your name and zip code.
Lindsay Charles. I live at 67501. I live up on 14th Street. I was wondering if there were any discussions about what's going to happen with the atrium at this point in time. I've seen a lot of issues going on with that, and I'm trying to be real nice about how I'm going to put this. About individuals who are loitering in the area. I know that, and I want to thank Chief because they've done a real good job about increasing patrols around the area, around my house and around the neighborhood there. But I was wondering if anything had been in discussion about the future of what's going to happen with the atrium.
Yeah, I think it's my understanding that inspection is, there are some enforcement items under review. I don't know if Izzy's in the building watching. Sometimes he'll come out of that office when he hears me talking about him. Do you know?
He's out today.
Oh, he's out. Okay. But I do believe that we are enforcing some code violations on that property. I can't speak to what the end result will be, but I know that this particular developer had a similar property in another Kansas town that, had to be demolished. So hopefully that won't be the case because I believe the city had to pick up the bill for that. But we are aggressively enforcing code violations and really sorry to hear that we're still having issues with loitering and other illicit activity.
Not only loitering, but a lot of them are panhandling around the area. In fact, my wife and some of the other ladies from the neighborhood have been basically accosted by individuals trying to get money from them.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to trying to do something with those folks. I would like to see something happen to help them out also, but I don't need my wife accosted in an attempt to get money from her either.
For sure. Yeah. That's terrifying.
I worked in prison for over 40 years, so I'm well aware of the difficulties with law enforcement and that type of thing, but I'm just wondering if there's going to be something done about this.
Yeah, well, why don't we get with our inspection department and try to get an update for the public at large at our next meeting on this item. And you can just reach out to us if you have additional questions.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Thank you all
Well,
for your
I
time.
appreciate you coming to the meeting and sitting through an hour and a half to talk, so thank you. And Paul, do you mind giving that to Izzy for an update for next meeting? Okay, great. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council on an item not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, before we get to our actual action items. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. So we will return at 10:30. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Yeah.
Yes.
Bast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho.
Yes.
Angela Richard, Director of Finance. This is the first of our budget hearings. This is in regards to the matters of the revenue neutral rate. Our proposed budget for 2023 shows a reduction in the mill levy, which equals our revenue neutral rate. However, we are going through the procedures and with the requirements of SB 13 in order to prevent any consequences if we were to exceed our revenue neutral rate. This might happen if the if the valuation were to change, therefore changing our mill levy. Our 22 budget mill levy was 44.462. The actual assess was 44.492 due to the valuation change. Our revenue neutral rate is 41.556, which we intend to levy, which is a reduction of 2.9 mils. So to follow the requirements of SB 13, we filed a notice with the county clerk. She mailed out letters to taxpayers letting them know of our intent to levy this mill rate and to give notice of our budget hearing. We did publish the notification in the Hutch News and post it on our website. So I would like to open it up, and if there's any public comments specific to the mill levy and the revenue neutral rate. If there's any questions regarding the other matters of the budget, we can address those during our normal public hearing. So after we hear public comments, we'll close the revenue neutral rate public hearing, and then you will adopt the resolution as presented.
Thank you, Angela. I would just like to mention for the public at large, because it is a little confusing when we're voting on something to increase the revenue neutral. It is the intent of the council to have a revenue neutral budget. I know that the county did increase. They're not doing revenue neutral, but the city does have every intention of putting forth a revenue neutral budget. The only reason we're voting on this is because should the evaluation come in and do something extraordinarily unexpected and crash, we have to have the safeguard in place. With that, I would like to invite anybody in the audience who has a question on this particular item to make comments.
Mayor, council members, I'm Esau Freeman with SEIU Local 513, and we've got some concerns about keeping everything revenue neutral because things in life aren't revenue neutral right now. Many of the other counties have been giving their employees 8% pay increases and helping them keep up with their rent and inflation and allowing them to be able to pay their groceries and things like that. And while we don't slight police and fire for the raises that they may be getting, I think that there is a portion of your work population that's being left behind. And continuing to stay revenue neutral does not give you the funds in order to lift those people out of the wages that they're making that essentially are leaving them as the working poor. Many of your city workers, street workers, landscapers, maintenance workers, many of those folks have second jobs because they can't afford to make a living off of what you're paying them. And so, you know, as we move forward and we try to keep the voters happy so that we can get reelected, it's also very important to let the voters know that the amenities and the services, places like the zoo and the swimming pool and the grass is being mowed and the fields kept up for their baseball games and the street repairs and those street lights that everybody cares so much about. I really look forward to a day when citizens are as passionate about taking care of the employees that take care of their city as they are whether they have a street light in the school zone or not, because I think that is very important. But I think oftentimes we get caught up on issues that could easily be resolved, but we don't really see what's going on with the people that are making Hutchinson such a great city to live in. So that's what we wanted to let you guys know, and if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to respond.
Okay, thank you, Esau.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council on the revenue neutral rate?
My name is Brian Fitzgerald, 67501.
I'd like to address the mayor and the council about SEIU employees that have lost pretty much all incentives to stay working at the city. Most of our incentives have been taken away in the last 10 years. And benefits, we've lost most benefits that we used to have. And I would like the council to check into reinstating some of those incentives to stay working and benefits of having the job working for the city and keeping it running.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council? Questions or comments from the council on revenue neutral? Further comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
All motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pyrus Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
I need a motion to approve the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution for revenue neutral?
I would move to approve a resolution of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pyrus Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7B, public hearing to consider adoption of the 2023 budget.
Okay, can I please have a motion to open the public hearing for the budget?
I move to open the public hearing for the budget.
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pyrus Carvalho.
Yes.
Okay, Angela Richard, Director of Finance. This is our normal budget hearing, and this includes the Hutch Recreation Commission's proposed mill levy of 3.613. They are responsible for doing their own revenue neutral procedures. And I wanted to make you aware of some changes between the proposed budget and what I have put in front of you to adopt. I added the opioid fund. We received $9,800 from that settlement. It needs to be its own fund, so we established the fund and gave it budget authority for next year. The next item was the police department salaries. Those were increased due to FOP negotiations. And then we're included a transfer of $2 million from the stormwater fund to the CIP fund to help pay for the mine road repairs. As a reminder, in the state form, we include any ending cash balances for the fund as an expenditure. It gives us authority to spend that in the case that we have an emergency or something unexpected come up. So that is why the amounts in the state form are more than what you have seen in the proposed budget. I did include a schedule to reconcile that for you. And then I also wanted to remind you that we cannot increase the total expenditures beyond what was already published, but if there are any changes you would like to make, we can reduce expenditures. So with that, I would open it up for public comment or any questions.
Angela, can you touch a little bit on the effect of the budget on our ending balance? And because I think that's an important piece of this conversation, where while we recognize the need to fairly compensate our employees, they are the lifeblood of the city. The budget we're putting forth is already going to, I believe, eliminate up to 40% of our reserves. And that is a trajectory that I don't know how comfortable you are with it, but it doesn't seem like we can stay on that very long.
No, we can't. Our general fund policy states that we would have around $6 million in our general fund. I believe with the budget as presented, we will end up around 6.2 million at the end of 2023. But we did end 2021 with 9.5 million in our general fund. So this budget as proposed would spend down those reserves, and it's largely on like capital improvement projects. The raises we did put in there, those are spending down some of those reserves.
Okay, so do you anticipate, since some of it was CIP, we won't see the same need for reserve funds next year?
Hopefully, with some of the equipment needs, we're taking care of those, so because they've been delayed. So hopefully not, and because it is in equipment and capital improvement projects, it isn't something that we're establishing going forward. They won't be ongoing operating costs. So we'll have more control over that in the future to the level we want to fund those projects and equipment.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Questions or comments from the council on the budget? This is a public hearing. If there are those in the audience that want to make comments or questions about the proposed 2023 budget, I'd invite you to come to the podium.
Esau Freeman, SEIU. We were kind of mumbling amongst ourselves that how are you going to pay for all these capital improvements if you can't afford to compensate the employees properly? And our further concern is, you've got 30-year employees that are looking for other jobs. So, while you want to buy new paper towel dispensers or new water dispensers or a new truck or two, who's going to drive those trucks? Where's all your experience going to be? I know capital improvements are a one-time thing, and you guys got a whole bunch of one-time money. And so just like if I went to the casino and won $5,000, I wouldn't go out and buy a $50,000 house. And so you're trying to make purchases within your budget. And, we understand that, but your employees aren't able to make purchases on their budget that they're given. And every year, or I've been doing this for 8 years, and we often hear, well, this year we're going to do some capital improvements, and next year we'll have a little bit of money for you. And many times, SEIU employees that are represented by SEIU, your employees, have said, okay, City of Hutch, we care about you, we care about our jobs, we care about this community, so we're going to take it on the chin one more time. But guys, we are at a breaking point. These people, not just the ones sitting here, the other ones out sweating in the sun right now, they're at a breaking point. So, do what you want, but I would say tread lightly, because you've got a lot of people hanging on by a
still get a 3% raise for the majority of people, which is the standard cost of living raise with the merit raise. Like, how many people do you have that get under the 3%?
I'm not sure of how many people, but I know mine is usually 2.5% to 3%.
I think that's typically what we've given.
Yeah.
The last couple
2.5,
years,
yeah,
it's been
it
a
was
little
2.5.
bit higher. I know we did 3.5 in 2020, but it's for the general public. They probably don't realize we did go to a performance-based evaluation process. I know that is a little unusual for public employees who tend to be on a step or an automatic raise system. We went to performance-based a few years ago, and that has been a transition for our employees. But feel very strongly that it does incent the best performance and does give the opportunity for people to get a higher percentage. I know it's never going to be popular.
And like 3.5% increase of pay when inflation is 5 to 9%, taking home less money.
I absolutely understand that, Brian. It's the inflationary pressures are a struggle for us all.
Thank you.
I really do understand where you're all coming from, and I wish we could give the 9 to 10% that the people were asking for this year, but we would have to make massive cuts in our workforce in order to afford that.
I think we are really trying our best to not have to lay anybody off, or we have to look at the future, like where is the markets heading? What if we go into a recession? And just like with the pandemic, we had like 3 study sessions because we tried to come up with a way that we didn't have to lay a single person off. There's a lot of places or cities or staff that didn't have the revenue that was coming in based off of sales, or no, we had to think about it coming in. Are we going to have the money to keep? So we thought like, well, we'll do it in phases so that we really hope not to have to do that. But let's say a bunch of places raise up the 9 to 10%.
Like
Well,
the
how
police
many-
department's getting?
But how many jobs are going to have to get cut when the recession happens?
I did want to address your question, Esau. The wages that we included in the budget were based on individual market studies for the different positions. We didn't unilaterally give the police department a 10% raise. What we did is, like we did with all of our different job codes, and Angela can speak much more intelligently to this than I can. We do studies of those job positions against our sister markets and try to position Hutchinson as a city of choice for those employees in each of those different positions. And that's going to be different. A traffic light technician is paid differently than a lieutenant. And Angela, I don't know if you can speak to kind of how that was done, or if Paul, Tom Sanders isn't here, but I did want to address that we are not treating one union differently based on some perception that they're more or less important. All of our city employees are important. We're just trying to make database decisions on how to position our staff in line with the market.
Mayor, hold on a
Yes.
second, brother.
Yes.
So, Mayor, I appreciate that. But when we went to that market base, there was supposed to be an evaluation system. And originally in that evaluation system, you were going to have 2 supervisors, possibly from different departments, go over those evaluations. Now what we've gotten into is an evaluation system where even when the employee turns in their self-evaluation, it's disregarded by the supervisor. Sometimes supervisors will give good raises or good feedback to people, and it will be sent to their supervisor, and it will be sent back to be changed. There are supervisors who have told the employees that there is no way that everybody can get exceeds. So there's a preconceived notion that there's supposed to be a certain amount of exceeds, a certain amount of meets, and a certain amount of below standard. And unfortunately, the raise that you think everybody's getting is usually that exceeds. But what the majority of the people are getting are meets expectations or below expectations. So we can put out a fluffed up number that says, oh yeah, we're giving them 3.5%, when unfortunately half the people in this room are going to walk away with 2.5%. We used to have a step and range system where every step was worth 2.5%, and every time cost of living changed, or we needed that whole scale to come up, you guys would look at the actual price index and do it. The other concern I have with doing things with data, as you say, you're data driven, data is something that comes after the fact. So every time you go back and look at data, you're going to look at what the trend was for 2 or 3 years ago. And that's why now you're realizing how far your police department was behind. You're just now realizing how far your dispatchers are behind. I would encourage each of you to listen to NPR News. There were some really terrific stories about how rural dispatchers are one of the hardest jobs in the United States, one of the hardest positions to staff, and you're still paying people $14.77 an hour to do that job. They're not being treated fairly. They're not being paid what they're worth. And we can sit up here and talk all day about how we're trying to do our best, but I don't want you to try. I want you to do it. I want you to look these people in the eye and actually do it. Don't give them lip service, because that's not paying their bills. It's not paying their rent. And when we see police officers get 5%, God bless them. Thank you for the work they do. But these people who keep your water running, who worked through a global pandemic for the 3rd year now, and you guys got this big chunk of change in this thing called ARPA funds. And the ARPA funds suggested that you give these people that got up and risked life and limb every day to come to work, to make sure that your sewers didn't back up, to make sure that your water kept running, to make sure that the traffic lights kept going. Okay, and it said you should give each of them a $500 bonus. That was suggested in the document. They asked for a bonus, and what you guys did was you came back and you gave them a regressive proposal. Originally, you had offered to give them the raise that you gave everybody else in the city except for this unit, which was about 0.5%. And then you came back and said, well, you know, if you want that bonus, we'll give you the bonus instead of the 0.5%. But guess what? That's regressive, because the bonus is a one-time giveaway. What you previously offered was something that goes on year after year after year and exponentially grows. And so I don't think you've heard us through this whole process. We specifically ask you to come start setting in on our negotiations, because Sarah, I'd love to have you sit through one of our conversations and hear everything we have to say. John, you too. Jade, you're invited. Greg, and Steve, you've sat through plenty of these. So after the last time we talked last year, I said, if you guys have any questions or want to talk, give me a call. I sent you a thank you card with my number in it. Haven't heard anything from any of you. Paul advised that it was illegal for you guys to sit in on negotiations. Funny thing is, City of Wichita did it all year this year. So if it's so illegal, why aren't they getting sued for it? I'd ask some serious questions, and I'd get more in touch with your employees, because the go-between is seriously getting lost in translation. And I'm not up here to chastise you. I know this is a hard job. It's unpaid. You got to make a lot of decisions, and you listen to people do a whole lot of complaining. But maybe you should consider me the canary in the coal mine. It's not getting better, folks. And there's no way that you can sit here and talk and rationalize to these people why they're having a hard time paying their rent.
I mean, they make the same amount of money I do.
You have a hard time paying your rent?
No.
They must not then.
I live alone, and that's my only income.
Yeah.
I think another consideration in our revenue neutral rate decision, which was not an easy one, by the way, because we are considering competing priorities, is that every resident out there is experiencing the same level of inflation. And if they were to have to bear the burden of increased property taxes on top of that inflation, especially with a high percentage of older Americans on a fixed income, or older Hutchinsonians on a fixed income in this community, we just didn't feel like that would be fair to them. And we want to be fair to our employees and fair to our residents. We're just trying to do right by a lot of competing factions. So it was important to us to try to keep property taxes neutral this year, especially with all the inflation everybody is experiencing. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council on the proposed budget? Are there further comments from the council or a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes. Is there a motion on the budget?
Motion to approve the 2023 budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion or questions from the council? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8A, consider resolution approving a special event in a designated entertainment district for Brewfest.
Paul Brown, City Attorney. Council, you have a resolution before you to approve a designated entertainment district, Brewfest, October 1. That occurs during the Rod Run. And this is, we've had it before. This is not the first time it's appeared. It's going to be basically out in front of the Fox and the Hutch Rec offices. And we'd ask you to approve that resolution.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a motion on the special event district?
I would move to approve a resolution authorizing Brewfest October 1st, 2022 as a special event pursuant to City Code Section 18801 and authorize the mayor to sign.